The hall was full. Pies were hot. Cray took his flask. Miss Marple sat near the wall. Knitting rested on her lap. Her eyes moved slowly. Lionel Cray walked in. Steps even. Coat buttoned. Flask in his right hand. The people turned to look. Some whispered. Some stopped what they were doing. He reached the judge's table, placed his name card down, said his name. No smile. The vicar greeted him. Cray nodded, asked if the event was busy. The vicar said it always was. Mrs. Barton walked past, a tray in her hands. Cray stopped her, asked if the pies were hers. She said yes. He told her they looked good, then let her pass. Marple watched every move. Her hands kept working the needles. Her ears took in each word. Cray opened his flask, poured a little into a cup, drank, wiped his mouth with his hand, put the flask down. The announcer began to read the rules. Few paid attention. Cray moved to the competition table, lifted a pie, looked at the crust, pressed it with a fork. Mrs. Vale told him judging would start soon. Cray did not reply, broke the crust, took a bite. Marple saw his jaw shift. He chewed slowly, swallowed, muttered something about spice. He picked up the flask again, drank, scanned the room, looked from face to face. Agatha Barton entered, flower on her sleeve. She looked at Cray, then at the pies, then away. Inspector Slack walked past. His eyes stopped on the flask. He asked if it was whiskey. Cray said it was for quality control. Slack frowned, moved on. A bell rang. 10 minutes until judging. Cray smiled faintly, set down the pie, adjusted his coat. Marple's needles clicked. Her eyes stayed on him. He stepped away from the table, glanced toward the side door, checked his watch. The crowd shifted. People set pies back on stands. Voices lowered. Cray moved toward the door. Mrs. Vale asked where he was going. He said, "Just a moment." He kept walking. He opened the door, stepped through, closed it behind him. Marple looked at the clock. 11 sharp. She turned to Dolly Bantry, told her to watch the door. Dolly asked why. Marple gave no answer. People waited for the event to begin. The side door stayed closed. 1 minute passed, then another, then a third. A sound came from beyond the door, high, sharp, a scream. The body was on the floor, lips violet, eyes half open. I stepped inside. Cold air bit at my skin, tiles under my boots. Dr. Haydock followed me in, bag in his hand. He moved to the other side of the body. "Dead?" I asked. "Yes," he said. "Not long." I knelt, checked the pulse. Nothing. I looked over the coat. Straight seams, buttons fastened. Haydock opened the coat, felt along the chest, listened with his stethoscope. "No obvious injury," he said. "Could be poison." A broken pie crust lay by the right hand. 1 bite missing. Flakes on the floor. A small flask was near the elbow. Cap on. Tight. I picked it up. I shook it. Liquid inside. Dark amber. I opened it. Smelled spirit and spice. "Poison fits," Haydock said. I nodded, slipped the flask into a bag. Movement in the doorway. Miss Marple, hands folded. "This is a closed area," I told her. She stepped forward. "I see something," she said. She leaned closer to the coat, pointed to the lapel. "Flour," she said. I looked. A pale smear. Fine dust. "Could be from the kitchen," she said, "or from someone brushing past." She stepped back, stayed at the threshold. Haydock checked the mouth. Teeth intact. Tongue clear. He looked at the eyes again. Reaction slow. Skin cool. "Cold store speeds cooling," he said. "Makes timing tricky." I made a note. Cold store, possible poison, flour smear. I checked the hands. Left glove on, right glove missing. I scanned the floor, found the glove by a crate. Grease mark on the cuff. "Grease?" I asked. Haydock said, "Yes. Could be machinery." He took a swab. The crate nearest was closed. No sign of tampering. Floor mostly clean. Voices built outside. People pressing close to the door. I stepped into the hall. Faces stared back. Some anxious, some curious. "Listen," I said. "A man is dead." Gasps followed. "No one leaves?" I said. "All names will be taken." I turned to the usher. "Tie off every exit," I said. He ran to the doors. I looked at my watch. 11:03. 3 minutes since the scream. I went back inside. Haydock was sealing bags. Marple was still there. Her eyes were on the floor. She pointed again. A dark speck lay by the boot. I picked it up with tweezers. Gritty. Black. I slipped it into an envelope. Sealed it. Marked it. I looked back to the door. "All right," I said. "No one leaves." But one clue had already fallen. They stood in a line. Names were taken. Slack held the notebook. His tone was flat. One by one, each stepped forward. "Name. Where were you? What time?" I stood near the back. Watched each face. Hands still. Mind busy. Hugh Barton went first. Said he was near the oven, checking batches. Slack wrote it down. Agatha Barton followed. Said she was with Edith Vale, carrying trays. Slack wrote it down. Edith Vale said she was at the serving table, helping the vicar. She looked down at her apron. Slack wrote it down. Ruby Dent came forward. Said she was by the spice rack, looking for cinnamon. Slack wrote it down. Mrs. Vale asked if they could sit. Slack said no. No one sits. No one leaves. I kept my eyes on the group. Played the last minutes again in my head. Cray at the table. The flask. The pie bite. The door closing. I recalled who moved where. Mrs. Vale from table to hall. Agatha from kitchen to stage. Hugh near the side counter. Ruby by the shelves. Slack spoke to the vicar. The vicar said he was at the main entrance, welcoming guests. Slack wrote it down. I noted Dolly Bantry's seat, close to me, near enough to see the side door. Her eyes had been on it. Slack questioned 2 helpers, both boys from the choir. One carried flour, one fetched water. Slack wrote it down. The tables cut the hall in 2, only one path to the side door. I marked it in my mind. I remembered Edith crossing it once. Her apron brushed a chair, a faint dark smudge near the hem. Slack asked if anyone saw Cray leave. Silence. No one stepped forward. I thought about the time. 3 minutes from door to scream. Enough to walk, enough to act. Slack asked about the cold store key. The vicar said it hung by the kitchen door, there all evening. Slack wrote it down. Keys could be copied or left unlocked. I kept the thought to myself. Slack told everyone to stay put. He would check the kitchen next. He waved to the sergeant. The sergeant moved to the side door. My eyes went to Edith's apron again. The smudge looked darker now. Not food, not spice. Slack had not noticed. I did not speak. I waited. A voice came from the back. One of the helpers. He pointed toward the kitchen. "Where's the chimney damper?" he asked. Heads turned. Slack frowned. I kept my eyes on Edith, and soot had already fallen on the apron, black specks on white cloth. I looked down at my apron. The marks stood out. Slack noticed. "What's that?" he asked. I said it was soot. "From what?" he asked. "Chimney cleaning," I said. He frowned. Miss Marple was watching me. She said nothing. Her eyes stayed on the marks. "I had to check the damper," I said. "Why?" Slack asked. "Smoke earlier," I said. He made a note, asked when I checked it. "Before the judging," I said. I kept my hands folded. The soot was fine, dry to the touch. Slack asked if anyone saw me. No one spoke. He wrote something down. Marple stepped closer. "How long were you at the chimney?" she asked. "Just a few minutes," I said. She looked at my apron again, tilted her head, then stepped back. Slack moved on to the next question. Where was I when Cray left? "At the serving table," I said. He nodded, made another note, said nothing more. I turned slightly toward the kitchen, Tried to see if the damper was still open. Couldn't tell from here. Marple's eyes followed my movement. I knew she was thinking. She always was. Slack told us to stay in place. The helpers kept shifting from foot to foot. The room felt tense. I brushed my apron lightly. Soot clung to the fabric. It did not fall away. Slack called for the vicar. Asked him about the chimney. The vicar said no one had mentioned trouble. I said it was just a small puff of smoke. Not worth disturbing him. Slack looked at me for a second longer. Marple stepped closer to the kitchen door. She peered inside. Said nothing. The other bakers stood in a group. Some whispered. Some stared at the floor. Slack finished. His questions for the line. He walked toward the kitchen. I stayed where I was. He called me over. I followed him in. Marple came too. The kitchen was quiet. Pies cooling on racks. Bowls stacked by the sink. Slack walked to the hearth. Ran a finger over the damper handle. Black residue on his glove. Matches the apron, he said. I said nothing. He put the glove back on. Marple was by the counter. Her eyes moved over the bowls. She stopped at the far end. I turned to see what she was looking at. 2 large basins. Same size. Same shape. One had a trace of liquid at the bottom. The other was dry. Both had mixing spoons inside. Slack stepped over. He looked from one to the other, then at me. A duplicate basin sat in the corner, and both bowls were marked. Batch 7, 2 bowls. One smelled of brandy. Slack asked whose they were. I said not mine. He looked straight at me. They have your batch mark, he said. Batch 7. I shook my head. I only made 1 bowl for that batch, I said. Not 2. He pointed to the wet one. The smell was sharp, cheap. That's not the brandy I use, I said. Slack asked what I used. Good quality, I said. He made a note, asked who else had been in the kitchen. I named Edith Vale and Ruby Dent. Slack glanced at Marple. She was looking at the bowls, not speaking. He asked when I last saw my basin. Before the judging, I said. It was on the counter by the sink. He told me to describe it. I did. It matched both bowls. He picked one up, held it to his nose, said the smell was harsh. I told him it was not from my ingredients. Too raw, too strong. He asked if the bowl could have been swapped. Yes, I said, if someone had the same kind. Marple finally spoke. 2 bowls with the same mark is unusual, she said. I agreed. Slack told the sergeant to keep the bowls apart. He marked them, set them on different tables. I folded my arms, looked at the counter. Everything else was in place. Slack asked if I'd used any spice just before the judging. No, I said. Everything was ready. He checked the shelves, pulled down jars, opened each. When he reached the nutmeg jar, it was half empty. He looked around. Where's the grater? He asked. I didn't answer. I hadn't touched it since the morning. He turned to Edith. Edith shook her head, said she had not used it. Slack looked at Ruby. Ruby wasn't in the kitchen. She had stepped out. Slack sent the sergeant to find her. Marple moved to the shelf. She ran her fingers along the wood, stopped halfway. Slack saw her pause. What is it? He asked. She rubbed her fingers together. Fresh sawdust, she said. Slack stepped over, felt the same spot. The wood was rough. A small area had been cut, recent. He looked back at the missing grater space. The outline in dust was clean. No tool in place. The sergeant returned with Ruby. She looked at the shelves, then at the bowls. Slack asked her where the nutmeg grater was. She hesitated, said she didn't know. The room stayed quiet. All eyes were on the shelf. On the empty space, Ruby's nutmeg grater was missing, and fresh sawdust lay on the shelf. Ruby's hands were empty. I had nothing to show them. Slack's eyes were fixed on me. Where is it? He asked. I don't know, I said. Marple was at the shelf. She pointed to the empty space. The sawdust was still there. Slack said the space had been filled earlier. I nodded. It had been. When did you last use it? He asked. This morning, I said, for my first batch. He asked who had been near the shelf. I said Edith and Agatha, and Hugh. Hugh? He asked. Yes, I said. He came in before lunch. What for? He said he needed a tool. I told him to use the common drawer. He took the grater, I said. Slack frowned. What for? He said for his bike, I said. To fix the carburetor. Slack wrote it down. He asked when Hugh left the kitchen. I said a few minutes later. Did you see him with it? Yes, I said. He wrapped it in a cloth. Marple listened without speaking. Her eyes moved between us. She didn't blink much. Slack asked if I told anyone. No, I said. I thought he'd bring it back. He pointed to the empty space again. It hasn't been back since. No, I said. The sergeant asked where Hugh was now. I didn't know. Slack sent him to check. The kitchen felt colder. No one spoke for a moment. Then Marple asked me about the morning. She wanted to know who saw Hugh take it. I said no one else, just me. She asked if he said why he needed it for the carburetor. I said he mentioned something about fine shavings. She nodded. Slack went to the side door, looked into the yard, called for the sergeant. The sergeant came back, said Hugh's bike was outside, said the engine was still warm. Slack told me to stay in the kitchen. He and the sergeant went out. Marple stayed by the shelf. I could hear muffled voices outside, boots on the stone, then the sound of a kickstand. Edith stepped into the kitchen, saw the empty space. Asked what happened. I told her the grater was missing. She looked surprised, or tried to. Slack's voice came from the doorway. He was speaking to someone. I moved closer. Hugh stepped inside, helmet in his hand, jacket unzipped. His eyes moved to the shelf, then to me. He didn't speak. Slack stood behind him. The sergeant closed the door. Everyone was watching. Hugh set the helmet on a chair. His hands hung at his sides. He flexed his fingers, grease on his fingers, and something else. Black dust with the grease. It clung to his fingers. Slack saw it first. What's that? He asked. Hugh looked down. From the bike, Hugh said. Brake work, bit messy. His tone was light. I watched his face. The eyes told more. They moved too fast. Slack asked if the nutmeg grater was for the bike. Yes, Hugh said. To scrape carbon. He smiled faintly. Too faint. It didn't reach his eyes. I stayed quiet. Let him speak more. People talk when they want to look calm. Slack asked where it was now. Hugh said at home, in the shed. Slack wrote this down. He asked when it would be returned. Tomorrow, Hugh said. I thought about the missing tool and the sawdust on the shelf. Too many odd links. Hugh wiped his hands on a rag. The black dust left smears. The grease made them darker. Slack asked what else he had done that evening. Hugh listed kitchen work, serving help, deliveries to the hall. I remembered seeing him cross the hall, before the scream, fast steps. He avoided my gaze now, looked at the counter, then at the door. Slack closed his notebook, told him to stay close. Hugh nodded. The sergeant left the kitchen. I followed into the hall. My place was to watch. The crowd was quieter. Eyes followed Hugh. Some whispered. Hugh moved toward the far wall, checked his phone, slipped it back in his pocket. Slack called him again, asked about the bike. Hugh repeated the same lines. I noticed his right foot tapping. The rhythm was quick, restless. Then a faint sound reached me. Not from the hall, from above. I turned my head. The belfry door was closed. The sound came again. Someone was moving up there. Wood creaked. A light thump. Slack was still talking to Hugh. No one else seemed to hear it. I stepped toward the belfry stairs. The sergeant saw me, raised an eyebrow. I pointed upward. We reached the door. He turned the handle. It opened with a squeak. The stairs were narrow, dust on the edges, fresh marks in the middle. We climbed. The sound stopped. Silence above. The sergeant went first. I followed close. The top room was dim. In the corner was a small box. The lid was half open. Inside, metal caught the light. I stepped closer. The outline was clear, no mistaking it. And there lay the grater. The grater was in the bell tower. I picked it up, cold metal in my hand. Ruby was at the bottom of the stairs. She looked up at me. Her face went pale. I walked down slowly, held the grater out. "Explain," I said. She bit her lip, didn't meet my eyes. "I needed it," she said. "For what?" She hesitated, then sighed. "Not for baking," she said. I waited. She glanced at the door. "I use it to shred dried ginger," she said. "That's baking," I said. "Not for here," she said. I folded my arms. "Talk," I said. She nodded once. "I sell it," she said. "Illegally, unlicensed spice." Her voice was low. I looked at the grater again, and the bell tower. She shrugged. "Good hiding place," she said. "No one checks." "This connected to Cray?" I asked. "No," she said. "I don't kill people." I kept my eyes on her. She held the stare for a second, then looked away. "Why tonight?" I asked. She said she was moving stock. Too risky to leave it at home. I told her she was under caution. She nodded, didn't argue. "This grater missing caused trouble," I said. She said nothing, hands tight at her sides. Marple appeared at the doorway. She looked from me to Ruby, then at the grater. "She didn't kill him," Marple said. I asked how she knew. "She's not clumsy enough," Marple said. Ruby almost smiled. Almost. Then she sighed again. "Check Hugh," she said. "He had more to lose." That caught my ear. "What do you mean?" I asked. She didn't answer. I put the grater in a bag, sealed it, marked it as evidence. "Where's your stock?" I asked. She said it was already moved, not in the hall now. I told the sergeant to keep her in sight. He took her toward the main room. I stayed at the door. Outside, air moved in. I caught a faint smell. Smoke. I stepped outside, looked around the yard. The smell was stronger. I moved toward the back of the chapel. Shadows shifted near the wall. Someone crouched low. The light from a match flared. A small flame licked at paper. More sheets in a pile. The figure turned slightly. The match stayed in place. I saw the face. It was Hugh. It was papers. And Hugh was trying to burn them. Fire was eating the numbers. The paper curled. Black edges broke away. Hugh knelt on the ground, both hands close to the flames. His head was low. Slack stepped forward fast, kicked the pile apart. Pages scattered. I moved closer, bent to pick one up. The ink was blurred, but clear enough. Figures in columns, dates in order, rows ending in red. Slack picked up another sheet. Same pattern, shortfalls marked in the margin. Hugh straightened slowly, did not meet our eyes, hands still close to his sides. "These are the accounts," Slack said. I nodded. They were. They showed deliveries. They showed cash. They did not match. Hugh spoke at last. "They were wrong," he said. "Better to burn them." Slack's voice was flat. "Better for you." Hugh said nothing. I looked at the top page. One name appeared again and again. Cray. Large amounts beside it. Bigger than the rest. No receipts marked. "You were taking from him," I said. Hugh did not answer. His eyes stayed on the ground. Slack asked how long. Hugh said nothing. The silence was enough. The sergeant brought the rest of the sheets. Some charred, some half-burnt. I looked through them, all the same pattern, all pointing to Hugh. Slack said it plain. Motive. Hugh kept silent. The air smelled of burnt paper. The light caught on the blackened edges. Every sheet a piece of proof. You thought killing him would hide this, I said. Hugh's jaw moved, but no words came. He looked away. Slack told the sergeant to bag the pages. Each one went into evidence. One after another. Hugh shifted his weight. His boots scraped the ground. His hands flexed. You didn't use poison, Slack said. Why the cloves? Hugh glanced up for a second, then looked away again. Said nothing. I thought about the pie. Too strong to eat. Too spiced for sense. The crust was broken. One bite missing, left by the body. If not poison, then why the act? Why make it look that way? Why use so much clove? The fire was almost out now. Only a few embers left. The papers were safe in bags. Slack moved Hugh toward the door. The sergeant followed close. I stayed behind. The numbers were still in my mind. The name repeated. The debts clear. But the clove overdose still made no sense. And Marple spoke the question out loud. So many cloves the pie was inedible. The smell alone was too strong. One bite would be harsh. I stood at the kitchen table. The pie sat in front of me. Its crust was broken. Agatha Barton was beside me. I asked her to taste it. She shook her head. I know my pies, she said. This is ruined. She tapped the crust with her knife. Would you eat it? I asked. No, she said. Not a second bite. I cut a small piece, pushed it toward her. She pushed it back. The cloves burn the tongue, she said. You'd have to spit it out. I nodded. So why would Cray eat it? I asked. She frowned. I can't say. I looked at the bite mark again. It was clean. No crumbs scattered. Someone wanted it to look eaten, I said. Agatha crossed her arms. Not me, she said. Could cloves hide another taste? I asked. Not this many, she said. It overpowers everything. I thought of the flask, the spice mixed with spirit, a deliberate blend. Agatha moved to the sink, washed her hands, didn't look at me. You think this means something, she said. I know it does, I said. Her jaw tightened. Cray wouldn't eat this, she said. He'd complain loudly. I agreed. The sergeant entered. He carried a small envelope. From Dr. Haydock, he said. I opened it. Inside was a short note and a list. The list named substances tested, one by one, each with a result. Agatha tried to look over my shoulder. I moved slightly away. She stepped back. The list was neat. Nothing in it matched poison, no alkaloids. I read it again, then looked at the bottom. There was an extra line. It named the scent. Clove oil, natural, concentrated. I folded the paper, slipped it back into the envelope. Agatha watched. The sergeant left. Agatha stood still. Her hands gripped the edge of the counter. The pie sat untouched. Its smell filled the small space. Sharp, if not poison. Then what was the point? Why so much clove? Why ruin a pie on purpose? Agatha shook her head. I don't see it, she said. I don't either, I said. I stepped away from the table. The envelope stayed in my hand. The note, pressed, against my palm, a ruined pie, a missing weapon, a dead man with spice on his lips. The sound of footsteps came from the hall. Slack appeared in the doorway. His eyes went to the envelope. Lab results? He asked. I nodded. He waited. And poison wasn't on the list. Chromium oxide. That was the reading. The green-black compound was clear. I set the report on the table. Slack leaned over. Miss Marple stood beside him. It's brake dust, I said. Motorcycle, Slack said. I nodded. Found on the lips, I said. Trace under the fingernails, too. Slack wrote it down. No poison at all? Marple asked. None, I said. Nothing toxic in the blood. I pulled the next sheet. Cause of death listed at the top. Blunt force trauma. Slack looked up. Head wound? Yes, I said. Behind the ear, I added. Cracked skull. Quick and fatal. Slack tapped his pen. The pie was for show, then, he said. Yes, I said, to make us think poison. Marple's eyes narrowed. Brake dust could transfer from a tool, she said. Or from hands, I said. Hands alone wouldn't cause this. Slack said. No, I said. Something heavy. I opened the bag with the swabs, laid them out in a row, black smear on cotton. Same dust on the collar, I said, also on the coat's left shoulder. Slack noted the position. Marple spoke softly. So the blow came from behind. I nodded. Height of the strike? Slack asked. From a standing attacker, I said. Close range. I thought of the injury, the depth of the fracture, the pattern of the mark. Rounded contact point, I said. Slack looked around the kitchen. His eyes moved over every surface. Not a hammer, he said. Too small a spread. I agreed. Marple glanced at the baking table. Her gaze stopped at the far end. Utensils lined the wall. Could it be a rolling pin? She asked. It could, I said, if the handle end struck. Slack walked over, counted the pins. He frowned. How many should there be? He asked. 5, Agatha said from the doorway. 4 here, Slack said. I took a closer look at the ones present. None had dust. None had residue. The missing one could hold the dust, I said. And the enamel, Marple added. Slack glanced at her. Enamel? From teeth, she said. He looked back at me. Possible, I said. Impact could break a tooth. Fragments could stick. Slack straightened, told the sergeant to search. Every counter, every cupboard. The sergeant left at once. Marple stayed by the table. Her hands rested on the edge. This changes motive, she said. It changes method, I replied. The weapon was still missing, but one rolling pin from the kitchen was gone. Every rolling pin inspected. Slack lined them on the table. 5 were expected. 4 had been found earlier. The sergeant came, in a 5th pin in his hands. He set it down. I moved closer. This one was different. Black handles instead of wood. Slack picked it up, turned it slowly. The barrel was smooth. Near one handle, a faint smear, dark, almost green. I leaned in. Slack saw me looking, turned it again. Small white specks caught the light. Not flour, harder. I touched one with a gloved finger. It didn't crumble. It was firm. Slack asked Agatha if it was hers. She shook her head, said she had never seen that one. Edith stepped forward, said it might belong to the church kitchen. The vicar shrugged. The sergeant placed the pin in a bag, sealed it, marked it. I thought about the coat smear, the brake dust on the collar, the fracture in the skull. Slack wrote in his notebook, asked Dr. Haydock to check the enamel theory. The doctor nodded. The others watched in silence, eyes on the bagged pin. No one spoke. Ruby crossed her arms. Her eyes moved from the pin to Hugh. He looked at the floor. The doctor took the pin to the side table, laid out tools, used a small brush to collect the specks. He put them into a dish, added solution, watched closely. Not sugar, he said, not salt. Slack nodded. I remembered the black dust on Hugh's fingers, the same shade on the pin. The match was strong in my mind. The doctor moved to the microscope, placed the sample, looked through the lens. His face stayed neutral. He adjusted the focus, looked again. Slack waited. I waited. The room stayed quiet. Finally, the doctor stepped back. It's dental enamel, he said. Slack wrote the words. The sergeant carried the bagged pin to the evidence table, placed it beside the reports, covered it with a cloth. I looked at Hugh again. He didn't meet my eyes. His jaw was tight. The brake dust, the enamel, the missing rolling pin, all of it sat in the same picture now. The image was clear. The strike, the staging, the false poison. Lab confirms dental enamel match. And now the motive fit. Blow first, spice later. That was the order. I looked at the rolling pin. The brake dust told the first half. The enamel told the rest. Hugh stood by the wall. His eyes stayed low. Slack faced him. It began in the kitchen, I said. Hugh glanced up, only for a moment. Cray knew about the ledgers, I said. Hugh didn't deny it. His silence was answer enough. He confronted you, I said. In the kitchen, out of sight. Slack wrote as I spoke. You had the rolling pin in reach, I said. Hugh's hands twitched. Not planned, he said. One blow, I said. Behind the ear. Quick. The sergeant shifted his stance. You dragged him to the cold store, I said. Hugh looked toward the door, said nothing. The flask was set beside him, I said. You took a pie, overloaded it with cloves. I pointed toward the crust in the evidence bag. The bite mark? Slack asked. Made after death, I said, to stage the poison story. I saw Hugh's jaw tighten. He kept his eyes fixed on the floor. His breathing was slow. The cloves would distract us, I said, from the real cause, from the blow. Slack tapped his pen against the notebook. You hid the rolling pin, I said, in the church kitchen store, out of sight. Hugh didn't move. Brake dust from your bike, I said. It matched the dust on the weapon. Slack looked at him hard. You didn't expect the brake dust to show, I said. Hugh closed his eyes for a second, then opened them again. You thought the poison story would hold, I said, but the lab found nothing. I stepped closer. You burned the ledgers, I said. Slack held up the charred papers. Hugh turned away. I let the silence stretch. Everyone waited. The truth sat heavy in the room. You killed him to keep the theft hidden, I said. Hugh's head dropped. He said nothing. Slack closed his notebook. The sergeant stepped forward. Hugh didn't resist. I looked at Slack. Said one more thing. This doesn't have to destroy everyone. Slack's brow lifted. I nodded toward Hugh's mother. She stood in the corner. She doesn't need the shame, I said. Slack glanced at her, then back at me. I lowered my voice. Do it quietly, I said. He said nothing. The sergeant moved Hugh toward the door. The others stepped aside. No one spoke. I turned to Slack again, motioned for him to stay a moment. He paused. Marple quietly calls Slack aside. She said, "Save his mother." Slack cornered Hugh. No space to move. The wall at his back. I held the rolling pin up. Black handles. Evidence tag tied to it. "This is the weapon," I said. Hugh stared at it. Didn't speak. "Brake dust on the barrel," I said. "From your motorcycle." He swallowed. "Enamel on the surface," I said. "From Cray's teeth." His eyes flicked to the floor. "The ledgers show the theft," I said, page after page. He stayed silent. I dropped the pin into the evidence bag, set it on the table beside the papers, then placed the flask next to them. "Poison story didn't work," I said. "Lab found nothing." He blinked hard. "You spiced the pie to sell the lie," I said. "Overpower the truth." He looked away. "Cray threatened to expose you," I said. "You hit him first." His jaw moved, but no sound came. "You dragged him to the cold store," I said. "Set the scene." I pointed at the bagged pie fragment. His shoulders sagged. He let out a slow breath. Didn't look up. "You burned the ledgers," I said. "Too late. We recovered enough." I tapped the charred edges. He closed his eyes. For a moment he said nothing. Then a low voice. "I didn't plan it," he said. "It happened fast." I didn't move. He said things. About my work. About my family. I waited. He took another breath. I saw the pin. I hit him. His hands were loose at his sides. He didn't fight the words. I thought I could make it look different, he said. Something people would believe. He shook his head. Poison's easier to explain than a fight. I stayed quiet, let him talk. I didn't want it to be her, he said. His voice dropped. Her name means everything here. He glanced toward the corner. I followed his eyes. His mother stood there. She didn't move. Her hands clasped tight. Face pale. Hugh's lips pressed together. The weight was clear, the air between them heavy. You can charge me, he said, but don't drag her through it. His voice broke. She's got nothing to do with it. I kept my gaze steady. Didn't answer yet. The sergeant waited by the door. Hugh didn't look at him, only at me. I stepped closer. He lifted his head. His eyes were wet. He looked at Marple, tears in his eyes. Can I protect her name? Morning light exposed the hall. Shadows gone, everything plain. Hugh was taken quietly. No shouting, no scene. The sergeant led him out. Slack followed. The door closed behind them. People in the hall shifted. Voices rose in low tones. Pies set back in place. The judging table reset. Plates straightened. Crusts checked. It looked almost normal. The smell of spice still lingered. The cold store stayed locked. Dolly Bantry moved to my side. She didn't ask questions. Her eyes said enough. Edith Vale went to the kitchen. She washed bowls, did not look at anyone. Agatha Barton stacked trays. Her hands moved fast. She did not speak. Ruby Dent stood near the door, arms crossed, head down. The vicar spoke to a helper, voice calm. He avoided the corner where Hugh's mother sat. She remained seated, hands still, eyes fixed on nothing. I stayed where I was, watching them all, noting who avoided whose gaze. The event went on. Slices served, prizes announced. The crowd clapped at the right moments. No one mentioned the arrest. No one spoke Cray's name. It was the way of small places. Trouble hidden fast. Life carried on. I thought of Hugh's words, the choice he made, the blow struck without plan. I thought of Cray's last moments, sharp, sudden, and of the clove in the air, the taste staged to hide truth, the false trail laid. Slack returned to the hall. He gave me a nod, said nothing aloud. The papers would say little, the court would say more, but not here. Hugh's mother rose slowly, left without speaking. No one stopped her. The pies were cut smaller, more plates filled. The noise rose again. I stepped back toward the wall, the knitting in my bag untouched. I had not picked it up since last night. I thought of small mercies, the kind that spared a name, the kind that kept one life from total ruin. Hugh would pay, but she would not. That was something. Slack stood near the door, watched the room the way I did. He understood the balance. The event wound down. Chairs scraped the floor, plates stacked in the sink. People left in twos and threes. Conversations stayed safe. Only a few knew the truth. The last pie taken from the table, cloths folded, lights dimmed. I walked to the door. Dolly joined me. Neither of us spoke. Outside, the air was still. The sound carried from the church tower. One bell, then another. The bell tolled. The truth stayed between a few.